executing the code, right? So now that is where our else statement comes in. So I'm going to go back here. Let me just comment this out. So, um, so if our condition is not true, then how do we handle what needs to come? So we'll say we'll have an else statement, right? This is where else statement comes in. Then execute this code. So if our expression is false, then we execute this line of code. I mean, this block of code. But if this expression is true, then we execute this block of code, right? So let us go back to our example. Sorry. So, let's say else. Let's log. What's gonna be our message? Okay, we'll just say sorry, kiddo. Right. So you see, our age, we set our age variable to, we assigned our age variable to the value of 17. And then in our if statement, we're checking if age is greater or equals to 18, then let's print whoop, you're an adult. But now this expression is false, so that means we're going to run this line of code. So since our age is 17, we're going to print sorry, kiddo, right? Simple as that. Now, let us introduce, so our third statement will be an else if. So else if basically means that if this condition is not true, then but there's also another if this condition is not true, but there's another condition we can check, then we'll have to execute that. What do I mean by that? So the syntax is basically if this is not true, then we'll say else if. But now we have to throw a condition here. You can see that it will give us an error. It's giving us an error to say something is unexpected token. Simply saying that something is expected here, right? And then let me just something here. Yeah, something. So if this is not true, then we're going to check the expression of something. And if this is true, then we execute this block of code. But if both these conditions are not true, then we execute this line of code. So how should you remember this? The way I remember when I write if statements, I say, if this is true, execute this block of code. Else, if this is not true and this is true, execute this block of code. And if both of the conditions are not true, then execute this line of code, right? So back to our example. Um, da-da-da-da-dum. Okay, let's say else if, what can our condition be? Let's say age is greater or equals to 13. And then let's log our message and say, have a Coke. Have a Coke, team. All right, so can maybe someone explain to me what's going on here? Any hands?
Don't have
No,
any hands.
no hands. Okay.
Okay, we have hand. Can we take police? Yes, police. If he's speaking, we can't hear him, police.
Okay, maybe we can try another one. Mulanga.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So our age, we checking if our age is bigger or equal to 18. If it is, then it's gonna print whoop, you're an adult. And if our age is bigger or equal to 13, it's gonna print have a Coke teen. But if we ever get a statement that's not so basically under 13, it's gonna print sorry kiddo.
Okay. So if our age is 7, then we say, sorry, kiddo, right? So this is the basics of if statements, right? If statements, if else statements, and else statements, right? Thank you, Mulanga. Now you guys can drop your hands. So now I'm just gonna comment this out. Remove my comment. So I'm going to have um let's I hope your ones are ready. Let's dabble in some dark magic. So let's have a question where we um let's determine the grade of a student, right? Forgive my spelling, you guys understand what I'm saying. On their marks or mark, right? Let's determine the grade of a student based on their mark, right? So mm, so now our question is that if the mark is 90 or above, then the grade should be A plus, right? Now if the mark is 80, no, if the mark is between 80 and 89, the grade is A. And so then if the mark is between 70 and 79, then yeah, if the mark is between 70 and 79, then the grade should be B. Let's go for, let's just say 60. It's between 60 and 69. The grade is C. If it's 50, if it's between 50 and 59, the grade is D. And if it's between, or rather, let me just say, if the mark is below 50, the grade is F, right? So our pass mark is our pass mark is what? 50, right? So now the problem is pretty straightforward, right? So I'm going to declare a variable for our mark. Let's say that our student has a mark of 90, right? Our student has a mark of 90, and then we are going to declare a variable for grade, right? But we're not assigning any value to it. Just a question, right? If I say, oh, no, 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 no. Let me hide. Let me hide this. What do you guys think data type for, what is our data type for grade? If I say console log type of grade, what do you guys think we're going to see?
Nyakalo. Nyakalo, if you're talking, we can't hear you. Okay, we can move on to Mlanga.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I think it's gonna be a string.
Why would where would it be a string?
I think the compiler itself just determines it as a string. When I look at it, it just looks like a string. So I don't know.
Okay, let's have Ronald.
It's a number because it's not inside the uh is it it's not defined inside those coefficients, so it will be a number. So if it's a string, it will be inside those coefficient marks.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're talking about this variable, right? This grade variable. We're checking the data type of the
That one. Okay,
yes.
it's not above there. It's not there. So you only
No,
okay. Or it's
it's
not there.
not. Yeah.
Or it will be undefined
Okay.
or not. Yeah.
Choose one.
I'll go with undefined.
Undefined. Okay. Mulanga, do you want to go again? Or you'll stick with your answer?
Oh, I don't know. You did say that JavaScript is smart, and I've used Dart before, and with Dart it just compiles itself. So I'm just gonna say string. It may be undefined as you say, but let me just go with the string.
All right, cool. Undefined. To the victor goes the spoils, Ronald. Congratulations. Yeah. So because we didn't assign any value to it, it will be undefined, right? Unless we deliberately say null, then because null also is according to JavaScript, null is a type of object, right? So it will give us null, right? But now let's get back to the crux of it. So I declared our variable grade and I didn't assign any value to it. So now if the mark is 90 or above, then the grade is A plus, right? So we're gonna have our if statement and we're gonna check mark is greater or equals to or equal to 90, right? If that's the case, then we assign or rather because we've declared our grade variable, but we didn't assign any value. Now we assign our grade variable to A plus, right? So we're checking this condition now on line 37 to say that if the mark is 90 or above, then assign grade to A plus. So our student now is an A plus student, right? And then let us log a message to, let me just have a message to say student got, and then our grade, right? Cool. So now, what if our student has a mark between 80 or 89? So we have to check that and say else if mark is greater or equal to 80. And then if this condition is true, then what? If this condition is true, then what? Anyone? Yes, Joseph. Joseph.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you?
Then we would say we would write grade is equal to B is equal to A, sorry. And then console log student dot grade.
Thank you for that. Right. All right. So, and then if this condition is true, we'll also have another. Remember, we need to check all of these. We need to satisfy all of these conditions. So now we're here on 80 to 89. So now we'll say else if mark is greater or equals to 70, right? I'm just gonna copy and paste this. So what is our 70? 70 is a B, and student got B, right? I'll say else if again, mark is greater or equals to 60. This 60 is a C, else if mark is great. Oh, no, no, no. Because, okay, yeah. Wait. We have a C, right? 60 C if mark, okay, yeah, I'm on the right track. 50. Let's go with the D. And then now, if all these conditions are not met, or all these conditions are not true, then we have to handle the last one as an else statement, right? To say that the student got an F, and which is a fail. So what's going on here? We have a question where we need to determine the grade of a student based on their mark, right? And so if the mark is 90 or above, the grade is A plus, etc., etc. If the mark is below 50, then the grade is 50. I mean, the grade is an F, right? Now, what we're doing here is that we declared a variable of mark and set it to 90, and we declared a variable of grade and didn't assign any value to it, right? And then now we have our if statements, if else statements to satisfy these conditions. So if mark is greater or equals to 90, then we're going to assign our grade variable to A plus, and then we're going to have a print statement, or rather console log, that the student got A plus, right? And then if the mark, and then if this condition is not true, then we check, we have an else if statement to check whether the mark is greater or equal to 80. And then if this is true, we assign a grade variable to A, and then we're going to log this message right here. But if this condition is not true, then we check, we have another else if statement to check if mark is greater or equals to 70. Guys, if you don't have a question, please lower your hands, because I don't know if you have a question, or I get confused. And then this is the B, then we're gonna assign to B. And then if this condition is not true, we have another else if what is this statement, etc., etc., until we get here, where until we get on our else statement, where if all these conditions are not met, then we'll just assign an F to the student. So let me see if I'm doing things correctly. All right, so since our mark was declared to 90, our student got 90, right? And then let us change, maybe let's just say student got 89. No, 89. There we go. Our student got an A. Why? Because 89 is not greater or equals to 90. However, 89 is greater or equals to 80. So we assign a grade to A, and then we have this message where our student got an A, right? So if our student got, let's say 53, then our student, yeah, our student got a D, right? But let's say student got like 49 or something. Then our student got an F right there. So this is basically how we guys, there's other ways to write this statement, right? This is not the gospel, right? There's another way to rewrite the statement, right? Depending on how you understand or how your brain works and how to see things. But this is the basics of if statements, else if statements, and an else statement, and one of the ways you can solve a problem like this, right? So now we have an alternative to else if else statements, and that alternative is called, or rather called, switch statements, right? So excuse me. What is the syntax of a switch statement? So basically, we'll say switch, and then we'll have an expression here. Switch, then we have an expression here. And then here we're gonna have a case, right? So we're gonna have a case, maybe let's just say case value 1. And inside our case, this is where we're gonna have or execute this line of code, right? Then break. And let's have another case to code, break. And if all these conditions are not met, then we'll have a default. And then default here will execute a line of code. Then we don't add a break because this is the last line of defense. So in switch, basically what is happening here, we're gonna have an expression here inside here now. And then basically if this and this, and then this expression is gonna compare itself to case 1, right? Let me just say case 1. Let me just not confuse anyone. So let's say case 1, right? So if this case 1 and this expression, if these conditions are equal, right? Then we're gonna execute this line of code. And then we break. When we break, meaning we exit this switch block right here. We exit the switch block. And then, but if this, if case 1 and the expression, they are not aligned, they're not equal, then we move to case 2. And if case 2, and the expression here, if these conditions are equal or they meet, then we execute this line of code, and then we break, meaning we exit outside, we exit out of this switch block. But if both these cases are not aligned or they're not equal to this expression, then we go to default and then we execute this line of code. So basically, if you can think if you want to, right? If you want to, you can think of it as if this is true, execute this line of code. Else, if this is true, execute this line of code. Else, execute this line of code, right? So, let's just do a simple, let's just start with a simple uh example of such statement. So I'll have value is equals to let's just give it an empty array, right? And let's just say, okay, let me hide our console. Switch type of value, and then before I move on, besides Mulanga and Ronald, right? What do you guys think we're gonna see here? What do you guys think? What's the data type of value?
Caesar, I don't know if he's still sharing or not. On my side, I can't see anything. I'm not
Mary,
sure if it's my network or yours.
are we good now?
Yes, we could now.
What do you see?
Yeah, we could, we could.
What do you see?
Hey, you're typing some
Okay,
stuff. Yeah.
then we're good. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
besides Ronald and Mulanga,
we'll take Wise for now.
yeah, what is
Yeah.
type of value?
I see an array.
You say it's an array.
Yes.
Yeah, I like the background music.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah.
type of value. You can mute, Wise. Remember what I said last week that JavaScript defines the data type, or rather, an array is a type of an object. So you're not wrong to say the data type is an array, but however, JavaScript recognizes arrays as a form of an object, right? But good try. Not a lot of people know this, and that's okay. I don't think if you go to an interview, they won't be mad at you for giving that answer. Anyway, cool. Now that you've seen that, so our expression basically it checks the data type of our value variable, right? So we're gonna have case one, and our case basically our first case is number, right? Or number a number with a string. You guys get what I'm trying to say. And then if so well, what am I doing here? Our first case is a string number, right? So we're checking to see that this expression, basically the type of value, which is is a string, it's going to give us a string, right? So it's going to check if this is equals to this. Basically, are they same? Are they the same? You know? And then if they the same, if type of value is a number, then we're gonna console number, right? But if not, we're gonna break, and then we're gonna have another case. So our case now, our second case will be let's have a string. and then we'll log string. And then remember, we have to break like that. And then let's have a third case. Let's have a Boolean. Log Boolean, right? Now, if all else fails, wait, did I break? No, break. So if all else fails, then we'll have a default statement, and then we'll say log, let's say other. Okay. And because this is default, we don't have to exit or break, right? Oh, we can, but yeah. And then let's see, other, right? Why is this other? John, your hand is raised, so I'd rather ask you, why are we receiving rather other? Okay, let me see. Luvuyo. Luvuyo. Okay. Piacanho. 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 Okay. Ronald, you want to help us out?
Hello.
Oh, hello. Hello, Piacanho. Am I saying
Yes,
it right?
yes, you are pronouncing it right.
Okay. So why are we seeing other on our console?
I think we are seeing other because in all the cases, value is an array. So in all the cases, there's no array. There's no case that checks for array. So we're going to take the default one, which is other.
Okay. What about now?
I don't know. I don't know.
Remember, maybe I don't know. I don't know how other languages do it, but remember, like I said, in JavaScript recognizes an array as a form of object, right? So it doesn't necessarily say it's an array. It recognizes it as a form of object. You see here, line 82. I'm checking the type of value, and it says it's an object, right? So you're not the to think that it's an array, but rather JavaScript thinks of the data type of array, thinks of an array as an object data type, right? So it's another form of an object, right?
Okay.
But yeah, so if I change this to object and I say object, you see now we have our object here. See on line 95,
Yes.
we have our object here. But thanks. Great try. So you can mute. Okay, hands down, everyone. So switch statements. So for me, right, obviously the use cases for if and switch statements depend on the problem that you're solving. But for me, this looks cleaner. It looks cleaner than having, a lot of else if statements, right? So for me, sometimes if I have a situation where I have to do something like this, I'd rather use switch statements because it's cleaner for me. But so with that being said, let's take this problem and let's do it again. But now we're gonna use switch statements, right? Okay, Ronald, since your hand is up, can you unmute your mic and then
Yeah,
tell me what to write? So we're gonna solve the same problem, but now we're gonna use switch statements.
Okay, actually, I wanted to ask because I had a question earlier on with your if statement at the top there. So I think somehow we're gonna have an issue with them. So I tried to raise it earlier on, but we passed it.
No. Let me. Okay.
Okay, yeah, let's. You can run it. Okay, now, okay, let's give the learner a mark, that previous mark that we have, 90 there. Okay, so where it says if mark is greater than 90, let's say 80 there. Let's put 80. And then let's put 90 below. On 80, let's put 90. Yeah, so in this case, this should give us what? The first option, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's run it. So now it says if mark is greater than 80, then it gives us the first condition. The problem that I have with this is that it looks at one condition. So now it should give us 90, the one below, but it gives us 80 at the top.
Right.
Yeah.
So then how do we let's rewrite this then.
Okay.
Let's refactor. So we'll say mark is 90, right? So if mark is greater than, let's see, mark is greater and mark is,
I think the first one is okay. If you can just say greater than 90, then it will be equal to or greater than 90.
like that.
I think that's how we can write it like that. Yeah, it will give us the
So
correct answer.
you want us to add an extra condition for
Yeah.
a logical expression to check that if this condition is true and that condition, and then execute this. So we're doing an extra step to test, right?
Yeah, because on the questions update, it's two conditions instead of one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we need to add also.
Yeah, that's a good what is this? That's a good take, right? So when you are coding, you are obviously which I'll show you tomorrow. We're gonna work on some dark magic. When you're writing a code, right? It's good to have extra tests to see that the code is not bugs. So in this code, as Ronald pointed out, we have a bug where if we check for 80, but it's our first check, then we're gonna get this because obviously 90 is greater than 80. So how do we solve that problem? We solve that problem by having an extra check, right? Get back to Nkolisi to have an extra check to say that if it's greater than 90, but it shouldn't go beyond 100. So we have to make an extra check to say that it's less than 100. So basically, or less equals to 100. Yeah, something like this. So yeah, Polisi, Ronald, you still owe me the switch statement, right? Polisi,
No, I don't. I was just asking about this question up here.
you owe me. Polisi? Okay, I don't know. Okay, we'll skip Polisi for now. Yeah, Ronald, let's go.
I think we can take Levoyo. Levoyo's hand is up.
Oh, okay, yeah, let's go.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, just wanted to ask, with the switch case statement, the reason we put a break there, if we don't put a break, is the code gonna fall through to the next statement?
Uh, does that answer your question?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Um, Luvuyo, to also add on, when you are coding, or rather when you're trying to understand new stuff, right? In any language, JavaScript, Python, whatever, it's very good to play with, to play around, right? Especially, you see, in JavaScript, we use console.log to print what we're doing. When you start coding out, you are required to use this a lot to see at the point where you are at the program. You need to see what you're doing, what are your values, etc., right? So sometimes you'll write this whole massive code, right? And then you're assuming that what you're writing is correct. And then you're just writing this massive code without testing what you're doing at each point. And then all of a sudden you have 100 bugs and then you don't know where to start. So sometimes if you're not sure about what's going to happen, it's good to log, break your code and then see what's happening and then build it back up and understand, right? So with coding, it's great to break something and then build it back up and then understand what can be fixed and etc., which is something that we're gonna talk about tomorrow when we talk about optimization, right? So yeah, just keep that in mind. Uh, where my dog's at? Ronald, where you at? Let's wave that magic wand of yours. Let's go.
I'm saying yeah, I'm here. So for switch statement, I haven't really worked with them in JavaScript. So yeah, this one I can give it to someone else. Yeah.
Tomorrow,
I haven't used them a lot. Yeah.
tomorrow we have a match, you and me. All right.
Okay.
Let's who else wants to give it a go? Livuan. Okay, Livuan. I can't pronounce that, but Livuan.
Levumani. Okay. He vanished. Or she vanished. Can we take Karabo? Okay, here's Levuani.
Hi,
Hello.
it's Libuani. Hi.
Hi.
What?
Um,
Libuani.
Libuani.
Oh, okay, Libuani. We don't pronounce the
Yeah,
V. Yeah.
yeah, the V is like kind of silent.
Okay.
I'm gonna try here because I happen to use like switch statements, you know. But obviously, I think we're gonna declare a variable. So we're gonna create a variable, right?
Mhm.
Of sorry, let me just ish. Yo, someone's calling me. Sorry, can I turn to someone else? Sorry, ish, my granny's calling me.
Okay, we'll move to Karabo. And then if Karabo's a bust, then I'll have to do it.
Good day, sir.
Good day, Mr. Karabo. How are you?
I'm good, sir.
I haven't been called sir in a while. Okay, I'm
So
energized now.
I'm just gonna try. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try my best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what I'll do is just to put I don't want to lift the what do you call the thing? The else if statement. I'm just
Mm,
gonna put it there and just work on the switch statement. So what I'm
sure.
gonna say on the switch statement, I'm just gonna say uh, I'm gonna declare. So I just want you to uncomment the else if statement.
Which one?
Yeah, this that one, sir. From let mark equals to 90.
Um,
Yeah.
okay, I'll just put it here for simplicity's sake. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I was just gonna integrate it with the else if statement
Mm-hmm.
also. Then we're gonna switch grade, which is our expression.
Now, tell me what to write. Say, write switch bracket, da 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 da, close bracket, etc. etc.
Switch bracket grade. Then the curly bracket. And after that, I'm just gonna search for a case which is case, if I'm not mistaken, case A.
Is A, so I should do this A
Yeah,
plus.
yeah, A plus.
Mm-hmm.
Then thereafter on the next line, I'm just gonna console log. Yes, the student got A plus.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yes, and thereafter check for another case. I mean break.
Mm,
So I'm just gonna check for another case, which is case A. Then on the case A, I'm just gonna say console log. The student got A. Then break. Thereafter, I check another case, which is case B. Then console log that.
I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so I must just copy and paste now, no?
yeah. Simple as that.
Yeah, you guys must not copy and paste. You must get used to writing these things over and over again. Because I copy and paste for the sake of time. Yeah. Kinda after the D is the F, yeah. So we'll
Yes.
just say default. Mm, mm. Let's see, Ronald hand is up. All right. Let's see.
So I was saying that I wanted to just put in the else if and yeah, the else if statement. I want it to be there because now um I want to check first for the grade. And after checking for the grade first, then I'm just gonna the put in the mark.
Tell me what to write. Okay.
Yeah, it's a tough one, this one.
Okay. Maybe let's try Ronald and then maybe yeah. Ronald.
Yeah, sorry, man. I wanted to help him because I think I understand what he's trying to do here.
Okay.
So I can help him. So
Yeah.
I think he's trying to use the switch statement along with the if statement up there, if that's possible, if you want it like that. So I think he's trying to do it like that. So
Okay. We
yeah,
can do
so
it like that. We can, but
okay.
I wanted us to for the sake of this example to move
Okay.
away from if statements.
Okay.
But yeah, okay. Great try. Maybe let me try something, right? Just
Okay.
for the sake of time. You know, if we had the whole day, we would hash
Yeah.
this out. Yeah. So I will okay, I'm gonna use who was speaking just now? Who was that guy? Um no, I'm sorry, I forgot you.
And Ronald
It
just
was
now.
what? It was who?
Karabo and Ronald.
Right. I'm gonna use Karabo's um I'm just gonna build on top of Karabo's example now. So now I'll just say for my expression, I'll just say true, right? And then for my case, I'll add a logical expression, right? To say that Mark is greater or equals to 90. And then we can add that say Mark says right? And then we have a break. So so remember with this now, if one of these expressions is false, then the entire expression is false. So what's happening here, we just have a true expression, right? So if this is true, then it matches our expression. Then we're gonna execute this line of code, right? And then we break, meaning we exit the switch statement so that we don't go to these cases, all of them. So we break. Then let's add another case. So let's just say now it's on 90. We need to check if it's above 89. And it's less or equals to 18, right? So let's test. Let's say 84. Says we got an F. Greater mark is greater or equals to 89 and mark is less or equals to 40. What am I doing wrong here? Four. So this condition is false. Mark is 84. Oh, yeah. So this is false. So that means that the whole thing is false. So how do I rewrite that? I have to say Mark, if Mark is greater than 89, here we go. Yeah. So, what am I checking here? If Mark is less or equals to 89, this is true. And Mark is greater than equals to 80, right? Yeah, got that. So let's make another one. So Mark should be less than or equals to 79, and Mark should be greater or equals to 70. And then we give that a B. So let's say 78. Okay, student got a B. So I'm just going to copy and paste all this. Um, 69, B, C, 59, oops, 50, what's 50? D, and FF. Now let's test. So we got a 60, and got a C, 63, got a C, 59, got a D, got a 49, got an F, okay. Yes, Karabo.
Sir, so I was asked, so the thing that was confusing me is that I had grade as a variable, so I was considering it inside my switch statement. So that's why I wanted you to add the else if statement because of I had grade. If I had mark only, then I was just gonna do the way you did use the syntax that you have used here.
So you wanted to have something like this. And then inside the case you have. Is that what you wanted to do?
Nah, I
Okay.
wanted to I wanted to include the else if statement. So what the what I mean the grade is going to be checked on the else if statement. Then day after, I mean the mark is going to be checked on the else if statement. Then here we are going to work only on the grade.
I'm interested in your solution. Please, please copy this question now, and then
Yes.
send your solution to me on Slack. I want to see, actually want to see what I'm trying to understand. Unfortunately, right now, I don't want to hang on to it for too long for the sake of time, but I'm really interested.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so that is how we can rewrite, instead of using an if and else statement, we can rewrite this using a switch, right? So basically this is our expression is true, then we check case one, is Mark greater or equals to 90 and it's less or equals to 100? If this condition or rather case or expression is true, then the student got A plus, and then we break. But if this is false, if either of these expressions is false, therefore rendering the entire expression false, then we go to case 2, and then we check if this expression is true and this expression is true. And if they're both true, the whole expression is true, and then we console log A, etc., etc. And if none of these cases match this expression right here, and then we go to default where the student has an F. Alrighty. Yes, that is conditional statements. So now I want to quickly do loops, because loops, we're gonna need them a lot for tomorrow. I don't anticipate us doing switch statements tomorrow, but you never know. Let me just open my terminal and create a loops. Loops. By the way, I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes, and I didn't forget the names from last week. Tomorrow, I need you guys to be sharp and on point, because yeah, I'm gonna ask some heavy questions tomorrow. Um, let me just create this source. Loops fine. Okay, our loops is good. Whew. What time is it? Matlazi, do you want the 2-minute break?
Okay, no problem.
Mm,
2 minutes.
if they want,
I think we should take a 2-minute break and then we'll come back. Let's make it a 5-minute break rather, not 2 minutes.
Okay, so while they're out, I'll just write the notes, and then they'll just come back and read.
Okay, they'll come back at 10:35.
Sure.
Okay.
Mm.
Everyone, we can take a break, a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back at 10:35. Please make sure that you answer the poll questions that I've launched. Thank you. right, Caesar, we are back. By show of hands, can I see who's back? Can you please raise your hand to show that you're back? Okay, thank you. You can lower your hand. All right, Caesar, are you good to go?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, we are back. Back in session. Back to you, Caesar.
All right, back to the studio. Okay, guys, so we are going to talk about loops. Basically, because we talk about cleaner code and a simple way of doing things. So imagine you have a situation where you have to write um, something like this over and over again, right? Now, obviously, this is just one line of code. Imagine if you have like 10 lines of code and then you have to rewrite it over and over and over again, right? So, um, that is why we use loops to basically execute more or less the same lines of code, maybe sometimes with different iterations, right? So, with that being said, um, we have three types of loops, right? Now, in JavaScript, if I'm not mistaken, there's like five more. There's like no, not five more. There's five in total. Could be more. I just forgot. But for the sake of today, we're just gonna focus on three, which is the for loop, the while loop, and the do while loop, right? So what is a for loop? What does it do? Basically, it loops through a block of code a number of times. And the syntax is that we have the first condition or iteration, rather. It will be initialization, right? And then the second is the condition, right? To say that this loop can keep on executing as long as this condition is true. And then lastly, we either have the increment or the decrement, meaning that it increments the variable that you've initialized here. Can either call it the counter or the index or whatever, right? And then we have a while loop that loops through a block of code while a specific condition is true, meaning that if this condition right here is true, we execute this block of code. Now, while loops are great and all, it's just that sometimes you have to be careful. So with the for loop, right? You use a for loop when you know the exact number of iterations you want in advance. So if you say I want to loop this code 5 times, then it is ideal to use a for loop, right? Because the a number of iterations are defined or are known prior. But but now when you use a while loop, now you have to keep on iterating and as long as that condition is met. So the while loop only stops if the condition is false or is not met, right? So meaning that this can loop through infinity, like can loop forever. And then we have a do while loop where a do while loop basically functions like a while loop. However, the condition has to be evaluated after the code block has been executed at least once. So maybe, okay, I didn't write the syntax here. So do while loop will look something like this. No. Um, right, execute that line of code before checking the condition. So what it will do is that the do while loop will execute the code before it checks the condition. So it'll execute the code once and then checks the condition. And if that condition is true, it will execute this block of code again and then check the condition again. And if that condition is true, same thing, rinse and repeat. It will do that until the condition is false, right? So, okay, I hope you got that. Now, let's do some examples. So I'm going to start with the for loop. So I have a for loop here, and I'll initialize a variable and set it to 0. So this is initialization, right? And then I'll have I, let's just say 5, right? And then I'll say, this is the condition, right? Then I'll say increment plus plus. So this is the increment right here. Then let's say console.log I, and I'll just have a message. This is I. Right. So now instead of us writing console log 1, 2, 3, writing it so many times, now we can use a while loop and then just write this only once. So as you can see on my console, our I is initially 0, right? Is initially 0, and 0 is less than 5. This is true. And then we're going to increment by 1, right? And then hence you see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, at this point, probably this is confusing, but the way I think of loops, and I hope, or rather for loops, and I hope I don't confuse you. The way I think of it is like this. The I variable here is basically split into 2. It's split into current, I'll just say it's split into current value, which is 0, and then previous value, which is at this point is non-existent. We don't have a previous value, right? So during the initialization, if I is set to 0, right? 0 is less than 5. This is true, right? And then when this is true, now we're going to increment I by 1. So now the current value becomes 1 and the previous value becomes 0. And here we console log the previous value. All right. And then when that's done, we go back. So now the previous value is 0, right? We console log 0 and we have 0 here. Then we go back and we check. Now I is 1, okay? So then we say 1, which is the current value, 1 is less than 5. Yes, this is true. Then we increment by 1. Then what is this? Current value becomes 2, and then the previous value becomes 1, and then we console log the previous value, which is here. Then we check again. I is now 2. 2 is less than 5. Yes, this is true. And then increment by 1. Then current value becomes 3, and previous value becomes 2. So on and so forth, right? So now what happens when the current value is 5 and the previous value is 4? So what's going to happen is it's going to check. 5 is less than 5. This is false, right? And now because this is false, that's the end of our loop. We don't execute anything anymore. We don't increment anymore. So if this condition is false, we exit and then we're done. That's how I think of for loop right here. Anyway, who's next? The while loop. While loop, I'm gonna write it like this. I hope this makes sense. I'm just gonna leave it like that. While loop, let's just, okay, now let's have, let's say, let's declare I as our variable, and then let's set it to 0, and then we'll say I is less than 5. Then we're gonna log I, and then we're gonna increment our variable I like that, right? Okay. While loops. All right, so where were we? So this is pretty much the same code as this, right? Now, okay, so I've already explained what we're doing here. So we declared I variable and assigned it to 0, right? So 0 is less than 5. This condition is true, so we're gonna console log I. And then after, we're gonna increment I. So now I is 1. And then we'll say 1 is greater, 1 is less than 5. Yes, this is true. And then we increment, right? It's gonna go on until I is 5. And then 5 is not less than 5, so this is false. And then this line of code does not run. So that's basically it. Now, what if, okay, I don't want to show this because this is gonna cause havoc. But if I remove this line of code, as you can see, watch this. This loop is running for infinity. It's gonna run, run, and run, and run, and run. Do you see? And sometimes that's why I get very nervous when I use the while loop, because if I miss something, or rather I miss a condition where I have to stop it, it's gonna run like this forever, right? So you need to you need to put a stop in place where to say that I is gonna increment until I is not less than 5, right? Stop this. So now let's do a do while loop. Let's say do. Actually, I don't want to do a do while loop. I want to do an interesting example for the do while loop. Let me see. Okay. So let's say that let's say that we want a situation where we need to check a user password, right? So I'll say user password. So this is the password that the user is gonna input, right? Then let's have the actual password. Let's just set it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that, right? So in the do while loop, because we want to prompt the user to enter the password initially, right? So we'll say that user password is equals to just gonna have a prompt function. Stop this. We have a prompt function, and I'll say enter password boss, right? And then we'll say if user password is equals to the actual password, then access granted my boss, and then else let's log who sent you side eye, right? And then now, because initially this is gonna run, right? Now we have to have a while to add a check in place. So our condition is that if the user password is not equals to the actual password. So basically, when we run this code, it's gonna prompt the user to enter a password, and then it's gonna check if the password, the user password, is equal to the actual password, which is this, right? And then if that is true, then we're just gonna console log access granted, and then we're gonna exit the loop. Otherwise, we're gonna print who sent you. And since this condition is true, meaning that the user password is not equal to the actual password, we're gonna run this loop again. And then this loop is gonna run until the user enters the correct password, right? So right, there we go. So it's prompting us to enter a password. So enter your password, boss. Now remember, password is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll just 1, 2, and I'll press OK. See, 1, 2, 3. Enter your password. 1, 2, 3, 4. Enter your password. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right. Now you can see that it's because you entered our password, wrong password 3 times, it gave us the message of who sent you. And then only when we entered the right password, it logged access granted, right? So yes, that is a do while loop. And so I'm gonna just do one more for loop because we're gonna use for loops a lot. Let's say we have an array, coding lang, right? So we have C++, and then we have Python, and then we have yours truly JavaScript, right? Now I want to log each of these elements in the array, right? So because I don't want to write something like this, like console log coding lang, like 0, right? Or like, or coding lang, you know, ish, um, coding lang 1, then all, and then I have pi. I just want to write a loop and also a for loop rather. And also sometimes you'll find that your array is probably like has a length of 10 or length of 20, and you know you don't want to write the same code over and over again 20 times, right? So if you want to iterate over this through this array, you can just write a simple for loop, and then you initialize your I or your index at 0, and then you'll have a condition to say that coding lang dot length, right? So what coding lang dot length is basically this basically means that we are we are getting the length of the array. So the length of the array as we see it now, it's 3. So we're saying what is the length of this array? Then we say coding lang dot length, right? We're trying to get the length of the array. So as you can see, gets or sets the length of the array. This is a number 1 higher than the highest index in the array, right? Then we're going to increment because we want our I to always increment. So because we want each element inside the array, so we're going to have to increment, right? Now, so we'll say let's log coding lang I, and then let's just have our I there. So as you can see, what's happening here, look at the console. Our first element is C++, right? And then our first in the initial index value is set at 0. So meaning that, as I said last year, we use indexes when we access our elements inside the array. So the first index in an array is 0. So if you say if you call the array here and have a square bracket and insert the index at initially the index is 0, then we're gonna get C++. And then because we're incrementing here, it goes to 1, and then I becomes 1, and then we get pi. And then I becomes 2, and then we get JS. Then I becomes 3, but 3 is not less than the length of the array, which is 3. So then we exit the for loop, right? Like I said in the beginning, how I think of for loop, this is how I think of for loops right here. Always using the current value and the previous value. And then, yeah, when I was learning for loops in JavaScript, this is how I thought of it. And then this is how it started making sense to me. Right, now we are going to move to functions, but I will take some questions. My voice is depleted, so the team will answer these questions. Any questions?
We do have a few questions on the Q&A. Hulisan is asking, can one increment the variable by a number greater than 1 and then in a for loop? Caesar, your voice is really depleted.
Yeah, I'm trying to save my voice for the next hour.
Okay, team. Vukona, Tlozi, Nokwanda.
Morning. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right. With the first question, can you increment by more than 1? Yes, you are allowed to. You can use any number as long as is within the bounds of the array. Because if you increment by a number, let's say, for example, in the array that you was working with, and then you increment by 4, that means it's only going to loop successfully once because 4 is now above 3. So as long as it's within those bounds, then you are actually okay.
Okay, thanks, Vukona. Another question from Nozipo. Is there no way to run the code in the terminal Is it always run on the web?
I think this is a question for me. I love this question because you're now thinking ahead. So Caesar did highlight the fact that we're going to be doing Node later on. So that's your answer. You can actually run JavaScript outside of the web by utilizing Node, but we're not going to touch on that this week. We are going to start looking at it. I think it's on Thursday next week.
Okay. And then anonymous, so the length is 012.
Hey, no, the length is 3. The length remains the same as long as you're not adding a new item or removing an item from the array. So the length just means how many items are in the array. So the 012 is the index, or in other words, the position of the item that we're currently on. So in programming, positions usually start at 0 when you're looking at arrays. So position 0 means the first item. So item at position 1, it's at index 0. So you actually count from 0 instead of 1. Whatever position you're on, you minus 1 to actually get the index, which is what we use in this case.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay.
And then the last question is from Mohammed. The last example can we use for in loop? Did you get that, Vukona?
No, I get it, but for in loop.
Mm-hmm.
Tricky one, but yes, in most cases you can actually use different looping options. There's for each. It also depends on what it is that you're actually trying to achieve. Sometimes using for in is not the best way to actually go about it. So whatever you're trying to do, you have to actually reference your understanding of the looping structures to make sure that you actually have the best solution possible.
Yeah. To add on to what Vukana said, like I said, there's like about 6 or probably more, if I'm not mistaken, loops in JavaScript. For each, for in, there is no gospel to how you're going to use the loops. Just make sure that whatever approach you have satisfies the actual problem that you're trying to solve, right? And someone asked if we can increment twice or thrice. This would be the syntax, and these are the values that you would be getting. So yeah, loops can get very, very tricky, and tomorrow you guys will see for yourself. So I do advise that you guys just gonna learn, or rather learn about loops to prepare yourselves for tomorrow's lesson, right? Anyway, are there any more questions?
No, there are no more questions. There's just one question from Luvuyo. What is Node.js? Luvuyo, we're going to cover that in the next session, which will be, I think, when is it? Next
It
week?
starts sometimes next week, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be next week. Yeah. So the other session after the JavaScript session, then we're going to move on to Node.js. So yeah, I guess you can now continue, Sizwe.
Sure. Let me just open my terminal. Someone who asked if is there another way to run it? Yes, with Node, if you install Node in your computer, just say Node, then loops.js, and then when you hit enter, whatever that you display here should show up on your terminal. Oh, okay, I'm in the wrong folder. Yeah, basically that's what should happen. Okay, I don't know what happened, but anyway. Let's create a folder for functions. Not a folder, a file. And let's copy and paste this. Ooh. Oh, my voice is running out. I must drink sugar water. Ne? Anyway, let's start. Functions. Now, functions is going to be a big part of your lives. And more often than not, it's going to save your life when you're doing JavaScript, right? So understanding, actually, let me not say this, let me write it. Understanding functions is key to unlocking true power of JavaScript. I wanted to write something dark, but we're being professional. So, what is a function? A function is basically a block of code that performs a block of code that performs a specific task, right? So again, this is also we use functions to run away or rather move away from writing the same code over and over and over again. And I'll show you how. So in other words, basically reusable code. And then you're gonna, maybe when you guys go to interviews and they ask you about functions, you know, just if you forgot if you got the definition, just think of reusable code. You're reusing code over and over again, and you would use a function for that. So a syntax, if we define a function, right? This is how we define a function, right? This is function greet. So what does this function do? Just greet and say send banani, right? Send banani bahlali, right? And this is how you would create a function or define a function, right? Now let me just comment that out, and then let's write some notes. So with functions, there are parameters and arguments to consider, right? So parameters are basically variables that are declared in the function definition. If you see incorrect spelling, please move along. And then we have arguments. So arguments are basically values that are passed to the function Arguments are values that are passed to the function. when the function is called. Now, sometimes English data bundles, they like to deplete in the middle of a session. I don't understand why. So now let's have an example of exactly what are parameters and arguments. So let's use our greet function. And then this time I'm gonna add something here. I'll add language, right? And then right? And then let me call our function. I'll say Molweni. What's Molweni? Molweni? What's I don't know. But yeah, let's say Molweni. So what is a parameter and an argument based on the definitions here? And I hope these definitions make sense. Let's see them hands. Whose hands am I seeing? Mahlatsi?
Let's pick someone different. Now, Mthokozisi for a change, ne? Is that fine? Yes, Mthokozisi.
Hello guys, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. So parameter in this case would be language, the language there. After the function name greet is the language inside the bracket. That would be the parameter. And the argument would be when the function is called. And then there's Molweni there. Then Molweni would be the argument.
So if we call this function, what are we expected to see? When we call
If
this
we
function
call
with
this
the argument,
function, then we expect to see Molweni.
I like how you added that English accent. Molweni, bro. Molweni, bro.
See, Molweni.
Don't worry. We good. Me and you, we good. Okay. So let's have for all my developed people right there. I don't know how they say it in Tswana. I forgot. I just say let me add I hate. I don't know how to spell it. I hate. Forgive me. Anyway, so as you can see, we are reusing the same code over and over again. So when we call our greet function with the value string value of Lochani, then we're gonna get Lochani, and then we say Molweni, bro. Then we get Molweni, and then we say Ahe, then we get Ahe, right? That's basically the basics of a function. Okay, so now just hide that, comment that out. And then we have so in functions, we have what we call a return value. Okay, and then what is the return value? So it is basically where's that team now? It's basically a return statement, right? Which is used to return a value when the function is called. Okay, and additionally, né, it basically signifies that the function is added, right? So let me signifies that the Mm. Mm. Let me add another. Let's move away from the greeting. Let's have an add, right? Let's define an add function. And then add function, we're gonna have A and B as our parameters, right? And then we're gonna, okay, now let's say let's return A plus B. And then let's call our add function with 1 plus 1. And then let's see what happens. Oops, we don't see anything, right? Let me comment it out. There's nothing there. Interesting. So what we do here? Now let's try to do this. Let's say, let's log our function like that. Let's see what happens when we do this. Now we are able to see the logs, right? So remember, this is just a console log, right? This is just console log, right? But if you were to assign, let's just say have log sum. There we go, right? So when I just called the function like this and it didn't we didn't see anything, that's because I'm not printing it out, right? So that's why never mind this. I wasn't printing it out on the console. So that means that is exactly why we didn't see anything, but it does not mean that the function didn't return a value, right? So if I now basically call the function here, so right, I'm declaring a variable sum, and then I'm calling the function add with arguments 1 on 1. So what basically this thing is gonna return the value of 2, because 1 plus 1 is 2. It's gonna return the value of 2, and therefore our sum variable is assigned to the value of 2, or rather it's assigned to whatever value is returned here. I hope I'm making sense. So let me say that again. We are calling our add function, or rather, we define our function and add, and then we have parameters A and B. Then we say return the value of A plus B, right? So when you call this function like this, and then you add your arguments 1 on 1, the return value here is going to be the value of the variable sum. And therefore, when we console log sum, that's why we see a 2. Now, let's say now 2 plus 10. The answer now is going to be 12, right? Hey, let me just do this. Right? Then I'm just going to console log sum 1, sum 2, sum 3, right? So what we're expecting to see is 12, 12, 4, and 7. I hope my math is correct. Yes, 12, 4, and 7, like that. So we're calling this function over and over again. And this is dynamic, we're not doing something like 2 plus 10, and then we're gonna see 2 plus 10 over and over again. But what we're doing is we want this code to be reusable for different scenarios. So if I have a scenario where we want to add 2 and 10, then we'll just say A plus B. Then we know 2 and 10 is 12. Then, just make it dynamic. JavaScript, you have to be dynamic. You have to do these things. But anyway, so basically that's a return statement. And it signifies that return statement also signifies that the function has ended and therefore any code executed, okay, blah, 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 blah. So what this statement basically means is that if I have another line of code to say that let sum is equals to 1 plus 1. Yeah. So what's happening here is that as this whatever this line says, it basically if you can hover over those lines, you'll see that it says unreachable code detected. Basically means that anything after the return statement, whatever lines of code that follows after the return statement is going to be ignored because this is the main purpose of the function. Once we return, we ignore everything, Once you get dumped, you get blocked, it's chai. So once we return, it's chai. We're done, right? And that is basically the basics of the functions. And now I'm going to take a breather because we're going to do a problem. This is more or less a real world problem, more or less. But it's still basic. Whew. So I'm going to keep quiet while I type this just to save my voice, right? And obviously you guys will also want to take the time to write this problem. And then you analyze it later. And remember the whole thing that Ronald brought up earlier on. I challenge you to do this problem after the session, to do this problem, but come up with your own logic and own approach. Basically, what I'm saying is when you've done researching loops and if statements and all of that, and then you do this problem, don't write it the way I wrote it because this is my solution. So you're gonna have to come up with your own solution. I challenge you guys to do that. And basically that's how you learn in this game of development, I'm gonna keep quiet now. Get these classes. Total price. This is- Okay, so we have an array of products and we want to create a function that calculates the total prices of all items in the shopping cart. Suppose we're building an e-commerce website and we want to handle various aspects of the shop experience, calculate prices, and blah, blah, blah. We have an array of products and we want to create a function that calculates the total. Okay. So basically, we want to create a function that calculates the total prices of all the items in the shopping cart. Basically. Now, let's have a cart. Ooh. Let's have a Sheen cart. This is an array. So it's going to be an array of objects, you know? And then let's say our first item in the cart is a t-shirt. And then we have a price of how much t-shirt go for? Let's say 20 Rand. 20 Rand. Let's say we're buying 2 of these, right? And then inside our cart, we have another item of jeans. And then let's just say that this goes for 30 bucks. And then let's just say we have two jeans, 2 t-shirts, 2 jeans. And then we'll have 1 pair of sneakers. Let's just say 1 pair of sneakers, right? Gotta look nice. And then let's have a function. Okay. So let's have a function. And then let's call this function here. And let's just have total is equals to no. So what do we want to do? So we want to get the total price of these, right? So out of, let's see, this is the quantity. So this means this one is 40, this one is what? 60. So this will be 100, 40, 60, 100, 180. I'm assuming, I don't know, the math is not mathing. So let's just have a for loop. Let's say let I is equals to 0, and then I is less than cart length. Right? Let's iterate. Should I stop here and ask someone to help us? Awkward moment.
They can raise their hand. You are left with 29 minutes to wrap up, CJ.
This is our last example. And then it's
Okay.
holiday. Policy.
Yo, Polisi's mic doesn't work. We can move on to Tabam. Polisi, you can just type because we can't hear you. Taba.
Good
Hello,
morning.
Taba.
Yes, how are you? Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, as we are here, I think we will use the dots to access the information which is in the chain cut.
Mhm.
So by doing so, we will, let me see. Actually, we will need to create a value which will be the sum, which will be able to hold the total for us as we use the for loop to calculate.
So I created outside of the loop or inside? Or outside
Outside of the loop, but inside the function.
Okay, so and then we don't do we give it a
We
value?
Yes, we can initialize it to 0. Yes. And then we'll go to inside the for loop. We'll say sum, and then let me see. And then as remember last week, you showed us that we can use plus equals to, and then you will say cut dot price. I think yes. And then yes. And then let me see, because I'm trying to look what I think.
There's nothing on the log. There's nothing there's nothing that we printed.
Nothing's printed yet, ne? And
Yeah.
then I think we should go outside of the loop and create a return statement, so that this value will be captured where we call the function.
Like this.
Yes.
Nothing yet.
Ash, no, let me just think through it. Okay. Ash, I know.
Maybe let me give you guys a clue. So are you guys able to see this Zoom thing? Okay.
Yes.
DJ,
Yeah.
are we able to see what?
Okay. Aki, okay, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
So this is what we're seeing, guys. So I wanna this is our item. So we have our first object. So we're basically iterating through the array. Then we have our first item, second item, and third item. What we want is to isolate price and quantity such that we have to calculate the total price of all the items here. Tabang, do you still want to give it a try? And then if Tabang taps out, we'll go to the first hand I'm seeing is Ronald. So I don't know who was first.
Can we go to Itumile? Ronald has been participating a lot.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
think we should give the others a chance to talk.
sure. So yeah, Tabang,
Yes.
that's the clue there.
Yeah.
So now we're accessing the object, right?
Yes.
Now we have to access or rather isolate price and quantity.
Okay. Because in my site here, the way I see, the only thing which I can access for now, which means we'll need to use the double for loop if it's like that, then so we can access both um, both the price and the quantity. I'm not sure.
Okay. Into Meleng?
Okay,
Oh,
can you guys hear me?
yeah.
What I'm seeing now that you have on the console, it's object 1, 2, 3, okay. I'm going to continue from Chabang's idea, ne?
Okay.
So right now, as you can see there, can you please remove line 42 so that I can explain it well? Okay, now that we have sum, so we are going to say sum plus equals to cut bracket, it's square bracket I, ne? So now that we know that the first index, it's now 0. So in order for us, so since it's now 0, we are accessing the first object in the chain card, so which is name, t-shirt, price 20, quantity 2. So in order for us to access the price, we are going to use the dot notation for the object. So it will be dot price. Then since we are calculating it's the price, ne? So now there are two in quantity. So in order for us to access the quantity, we will say, oh wait, we need to multiply the quantity with the price. So multiply. Then you will say cut square bracket I, and we know that I is still 0, so we are still on that object dot quantity. Yeah. And then yeah, that's it.
Asimshayeleni izandla. Anyway, yeah. So let me do my math. Let's see. 20, 40, 60, that's 100. It's 180. Yeah, correct. So yeah, simple. Okay, not simple. Takes a while, but that's basically it. So now if we have another card where, okay, what am I missing from this outfit? I have t-shirt, I have jeans, I have sneakers. What am I missing? Let's add a watch. No, actually. Let's do this. Hmm. I'm gonna call the same um the same function, but now mhm, does it work? Are you still happy with that? Okay, I guess they're happy. All right. Let me do one more thing, and then we are done for the day, right? So now, let's have a function. Let's just say that I want to have a function. Okay, so I want to remove a product or rather an item from a cart, right? Just right. So we're still going to use the same Shein cart. Yeah. How do I? So I just want to use something called, I think they call it JavaScript functions, right? So, or array functions rather. So basically, these functions will help you to instead of writing these long for loop codes, right? They just give you an advantage into writing long code. So instead of you writing a functionality where you want to remove an item from an object, you can use something called a filter function, which is basically a filter function or filter method rather is an array method in JavaScript, right? And it is used to filter out basically, right? So if I want to remove an item from an array, I'll use a filter method, right? So how would I go about doing this? Basically, when we call our remove function, let's just say, let me have a variable called updated cart, right? And then we call our remove item function, and then let's say jeans, and then let's say shin cart. No. So what do we want to do now? So I'll say that here, I'll say cart. No, yeah, I'll say cart. So now, let me see if this is const. Okay, it's let. I'm using let keyword. Okay. So I'm gonna reassign, or rather modify the array, right? So if I'm gonna modify the array, then I'm gonna reassign the value of cart, right? And here I'm gonna say the cart array dot filter, right? And then how it works is that filter it accepts up to 3 arguments, right? So the first argument will be the product, or rather the item, which is basically what this means is that it's this thing item. So it's gonna basically get inside the array, and then it's gonna check for this. So this is an item, this is an item, this is an item, and that's basically what I'm referencing right here. Then I'm gonna have an arrow, and then I will say that product, no, we said item, so it has to be item dot name is not equals to name. And then let's see what happens, right? Okay, then let's return cart like that. Right? Okay, before we see what's happening inside here, can one of you tell me what just happened? Or rather explain what's happening in this function. Yes. whoever has her, he or her has, or they have their hand raised up first can go.
Yeah, police.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Finally. Yeah, so for this particular filter, the filter method will essentially return a new array with which passes that condition, that expression that you have. So essentially, since you are comparing the item.name with the name, it means that it will only return items in the cards that do not have the name of the argument that will be passed into this function, right? However, I foresee a problem with that. Maybe in a case where the user doesn't necessarily want to remove the entire item. See, in line 46, the quantity is 10. So if the user wants to maybe reduce it to 9, it will instead just remove the item altogether. I don't know if you understand me.
Sure, but we're not.
But we're not.
I don't know why I
I
speak
don't
and
know why I speak and
Mkolis, can you mute?
okay, let me try to mute my side.
Okay, so basically, I'm not trying to move one quantity of snake. I'm removing the whole thing, basically, right? So I'm not, I don't want jeans in my card. So I'm removing both. That's why I'm using name as my, I'm using the name as the condition to say that if the item name is not equals to the name that's passed here in the arguments, then we remove it. So I'm removing all the genes, right? I'm removing all the genes. Yeah. So if we wanted to remove a quantity, that will take a different, the logic is going to be different. So meaning that instead of using the filter, we'd have to decrease the quantity now. So for that, we won't use filter. It will be what's that? What's the other one to modify? I think it will be map, if I'm not mistaken. Does that answer your question? Okay, I think silence is golden.
Yeah, just unmuted. Police.
Okay, I think. Oh yeah, I think I follow. Sorry, I just lost you a bit on.
Well, I was saying for the problem that you raised, we're gonna use a a a different approach. So we won't use filter for that because filter removes the entire item, does not make changes to the actual thing, it just removes. With what you're talking about, it'll require it'll require a map method, if I'm not mistaken. And then we'll have to decrease the quantity. So basically we are making changes to the, what is this thing? This property of quantity here. Then make changes to the value there. What time is it? It's 12. It's almost 12. Should we have a meeting at 12? Yeah, so maybe when is our next session?
At 12. Oh, for
Eh?
JavaScript,
Yes.
I think, isn't it tomorrow?
Yeah,
I'll
okay.
double check.
Problem.
Let me double check.
Okay, yeah. So Mtolisi, basically here for that thing of yours, we're gonna have to write another function to make changes to the quantity, right? And then here we're gonna use a map method, all right? And then a map method, basically we're gonna have reference the quantity, and then we'll say that if, or rather we'll have a double check. We'll say that if the name is jeans, if the name is equals to jeans, then we're gonna say that we're gonna reduce the quantity. So here in our parameters, we're gonna pass jeans, and then we'll say that if the quantity is greater than 1, for example, because we need to be careful. If the quantity is 0, then but if the quantity is greater than 1, then we'll say that decrease that value, and then return the new value, or rather return the new value inside quantity, and then return the entire array. But I'll show you guys that tomorrow on the map functions. In fact, tomorrow we're going to be doing a lot of these array methods. Okay, not a lot, maybe 1 or 2 or 3, but you'll start to get to see JavaScript in its darkest form, Gonna play around with some dark magic. But anyway, let me just wrap up the session quickly. And in closing, this is not the only way to declare a function. So this is one way. And then another way would be something like this. Let me just do this. Whoop. Let's say const. Yeah. So that's one of the ways. This one is commonly used in functional programming, or like callbacks, right? But when you start talking about callbacks, we're talking about another demon called asynchronous programming, which we won't get to for now. But yeah. Mahlatsi, this is where I will end for today. Again, there will be no task for day 2 of JavaScript. It will be a thing of let us do some research on conditional statements. Let us do research on loops, for loops, while loops, do while loops, right? And then let us do research on functions as well. And then for those of you who are a bit advanced and have some time on their hands, let us look into array methods in JavaScript, right? Because we're going to use them tomorrow to start manipulating data and, all of that. So everything that we've learned this far, tomorrow we're going to do them all at once. Some of you guys, obviously, you're going to cry. You're not going to follow, but practice, practice, practice. So yeah, what we've done this far is just to give out the basics. Tomorrow we start basically what? We're going up a notch, another level, and then yeah, we'll see how tomorrow goes. But for now, I'm going to recover. I'm gonna drink sugar water, and then tomorrow my voice hopefully will be ready. All right, guys. Mahlatsi, over to you.
Okay, thank you for that, CJ. Thank you to everyone who's been participating throughout the bootcamp sessions. We hope to see you tomorrow, because it will be the 3rd session for JavaScript. And then yeah, if you have any questions, please send them on Slack. use the study channel, use the resources channel to get all the resources, and then you will further get more communication from me later on today. And I hope that you'll enjoy the rest of your day, and goodbye. See you on the next session. Bye bye.